Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to another lovely evening with Jay Bird watching. I got my buddies here with me, Jason Lyons and Ken Alfred. Fellas, how we doing in what has turned into now a Blue Jay-less baseball season?
It hurts.
Keeping busy.
All I can say.
Yeah, I mean, there's still baseball, still baseball, still baseball. It rolls on. Thankful that the other series are remaining entertaining. It was the Padres Braves series, although it was a little one-sided. It's nice to see some of those guys, come out of playoff slumps that they've been in for a long time. I see Harper hit a few home runs, and just. It looked like they were having fun playing baseball, and we're a half a Dodger house here. So,
you guys are all like antsy then.
some of us were unhappy with the Padres, beating the Dodgers. But I like that team. I find it hard not to cheer for a team that wears brown.
I was about to ask, did you get the brown hat?
No.
It's sold out everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Same from last week.
Yeah. But I mean,
supply chains suck.
Well, it's popularity too. I mean, when those City Connect that stuff dropped, it was sold out everywhere, and then the brown went after. So I mean, they've kind of got lightning in a bottle right now. And I'm not a huge Manny Machado fan, but take him and Tatis sort of out of the equation, and I like the rest of the team. So I mean, it's exciting, and it looks like the Guardians are going to fall to the Legion of Doom.
The evil empire is now currently 5-1.
Top of the ninth in New York. So unless Cleveland can pull something off, I'm assuming the Yankees are definitely
two outs away, but they're short of. I'm wondering how much of their playoff miracles they've used up at this point, because we're going to get a night. That was a real. Just as soon as I say that, ball bounces over the pitcher, lands in no man's land between second and short, and there is a runner on first base.
There you go.
So you never know.
You never know. Knock on desk.
It'll be like a major league kind of thing, right? Well, and Jason, sport the shirt, man. Sport the shirts. What are you wearing?
The
Ricky Vaughn.
The Ricky Vaughn edition, Major League, supporting the what they used to, the Guardians, scrappy team. It's funny, they're very akin to the team in that movie. They just need a Jake Taylor, a Willie Mays Hayes out there.
Willie Mays Hayes.
To that point, how is that shirt not their actual mascot and logo? It just kills me.
That's a good question.
You had the opportunity to be like the Cleveland Wild Things.
Yeah.
And just have that as your logo. That would have looked so cool on a hat. They could have kept the same, font and everything that they have for the jerseys. Just change the patch on the elbow and that and been done.
Big shout outs to baseballism.
I know, right?
Did they have a contest, Craig?
I don't think they did. I think they came up with that all on their own and just said, hey, you know what? I just think it's hilarious that they're Cleveland Guardians and they're in the middle of the U.S. What are you guarding? It's not like a border. It's not like a water mass or anything. Okay, Lake Erie kind of comes down and just nibbles at the edge of Cleveland there.
And that's what they're guarding. They're guarding Lake Erie, Craig.
Yeah, we're trying to, us down here in the States, we're just trying to make sure you Canadians stay on your side of the pond. And just kidding.
Wow. We're okay with that.
Just playing. Wow. As I'm sitting here wearing nothing but Blue Jays shit. It's just funny. I just think it's hilarious that they had such a cool. How many teams even have a movie like that? They have that culture, It's just, okay, great. The Oakland A's need to be a new team. What do you call them? The Money Balls.
Money Balls. Yeah.
I mean, I know it was interesting when they were talking about moving. The
one away,
Tampa up. Was it Tampa? They were talking about moving up to the Expos. When they were talking about that, they were talking about what would you call them? And I mean, it started to get interesting to see sort of what they were talking about calling them. I mean, naming a sports franchise, as we found out when they tried to rename Washington, it's not easy.
No.
You go with the Washington football team for, come on.
Well, part of that was, I don't know if you heard the story, that some jackass did the normal internet thing and bought up every domain name that you could possibly think of for what might be called a football team. and I don't blame him. He wanted to sell the shit. I would have done the same thing if I ever had more than $5 in my bank account.
Did he actually make money off of it?
I think he had one of the names that they wanted to, and that's why all of a sudden, this is one of the things I heard, that became the Washington football team because of one of those names that he had patented.
Wow.
So just to be that much fun. So you wait a year until he didn't want to renew everything.
Oh man.
The Commanders. So, but to that point, have some fun with it, right? It's like minor league baseball. I don't know if you know it's in Alabama, but it's where the Jet Propulsion Lab is for NASA. That was started by a bunch of guys playing around with rockets in a garage, literally in Alabama. And that's how NASA got the Jet Propulsion Lab. The minor league baseball team, and I forget who they're affiliated with in that city, is literally the Rocket City Trash Pandas.
Yeah.
And it's one of the coolest logos ever. And if you've ever seen the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, I really feel like that's where the internet got this whole idea from. It's a raccoon in a makeshift rocket from a trash can.
Yeah.
And that's their logo. I highly recommend anybody in baseball fandom that you look that up. Oh, 2 outs. Runners on first and second. It's getting crazy.
It's the same with the Savannah Bananas. Like
same
that
idea.
Whole story with the Savannah Bananas and talking that other team into calling themselves the Macon Bacon. Like, what's the? How do you do that? Like, how do you get a guy who's a low-level baseball exec in some small town, and he says, "I'm going to read P.T. Barnum's book, and I'm going to turn baseball into the most entertaining thing this city's ever seen." And he went from selling 600 tickets a night to over 5,000. They've had to add seats on. And now they're doing world tours. There's some talk that they might even come through some of the minor league stadiums in Canada next year. And the whole thing, as hokey as some of it may be, everybody loves it. And it's sellable to everybody. And is that it?
Game's done?
Yep.
Wow.
So
dang it.
Breaking the news here that, the New York Yankees, unfortunately, are yet going to the American League Championship Series after a 5-1 victory over the Cleveland Guardians.
Yep. Well, I guess they got a tough road ahead, though. They got the Astros, who, when they swept the Mariners, I was surprised. I know we were talking during the last few episodes when they were like, oh, it looks like Seattle's up and looks like they have a lead. And then I think, remember last week, they lost the lead. They lost again. And that game 3, my God, that is a pitching duel. 18 innings?
Brutal.
18 innings. Monstrous ridiculousness.
Wow. And people might look at the score. It's like 1-0. They're like, how is that exciting? Because I think they love seeing like the 10-9 or 12-15 or something like that. They love the offense, but it was like a pitching showcase, and the defense were really, really on par there. And, man, 3-2? Home
3-2.
Wow.
Every at bat had there was electricity. It didn't matter who it was. Whoever was coming to the plate, as soon as it got past like 12, when it was going into 13 and 14 and 15, you're just like, somebody's going to be the hero here. Who's it going to be? And then, J-Rod makes that unbelievable catch in left center. Like, I mean,
it was Devon White level World Series. That's
was
how that catch felt.
And how they don't come out of that, though. Like, I mean, and what the Mariners have been doing previously is they were riding a lot of that lightning. They'd have somebody make a big play, or their pitcher would throw an unbelievable inning and they'd feed off it. They just couldn't get any traction. I mean, kudos to the Astros. They're just like a wet blanket. They just lie on you until you go to sleep, and then they put one to deep center. Like, I mean, it's It's good baseball. It's not the most exciting baseball to watch, but if you like D and you like, if you like guys, really, really, really play in the game, then that's the Astros right now.
Yeah, definitely. And for that, it's a very interesting series going on, which will be now the rematch of the, banging on a trash can incident. So it'll be interesting to see, especially with any Astros fans being in New York. I fear for them because of that incident. We have the piece of that where we, as Blue Jays fans, get to see that just with how George Springer gets treated when we're on the road sometimes. It's been 4 years, and it's still very, very prevalent in a lot of baseball enthusiasts' brains. So that is literally what we're going to be dealing with all over again And like I said, it's a rematch to, that fandom and that fan base. But I was on, pins and needles watching the Astros play the Mariners there, and I was hoping that the Mariners would run out with that at some point, guys. And it just never did. And then that game, like you said, where it just kept going and going and going, all I was doing was watching my FanDuel DraftKings stuff bleed out $1 at a time. And they had all these bets. Will the game end this inning? Will the game end this? And it just kept going out and out and out. And I just kept betting $1 on it. I'm like, okay, great. Maybe I'll make $10.
I mean, Seattle's best chance was game one. Like they were coming out in the beginning, like they were hitting the ball well and all that sort of stuff, but just Houston would just not go away. And so Seattle could not close those first two games. And we saw the last one, game 3, is like, wow, Houston's really that good. Alvarez was really like, oh my God. How many home runs did he hit? 3?
3, I think.
3 in the first 2 games. Now, no one was expecting too much in the season, game 3, because obviously they're going to probably pitch them a lot tighter. But he could be a force to be reckoned with against the Yankees. We'll see how well he hits.
Yeah, he's a hell of a ball player. And to that point, I want to flip-flop to the National League side of things here and give Jason his chance to gush about the Phillies here, because he's a closet Phillies fan, as we can tell from the Schmitty hat behind him. So,
there it is.
Bryce, speaking of that, Bryce Harper was the National League equivalent of Henderson Alvarez.
I mean, Bryce Harper was a man amongst boys for a week. Every time he went to the plate, he was stone-faced. He murdering baseballs. He had nothing else on his mind but hitting home runs and getting the Phillies on past the Braves. He went to, and I haven't seen Bryce go to work like this in a long time. Bryce Harper is, I feel like, an underrated, even though, everyone knows who Bryce Harper is and yada, yada. I feel like he's a very underrated player when it comes to the sort of talk about Trout and, Mookie and some of those other guys that are way up there in the upper echelon, where I feel like Harper kind of slips down to like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 somewhere times even. And when it gets down to it, he's unstoppable. He's too big to stop. You throw him anything in the zone, even low, and he hammers it. And if you don't, he's fast enough that if you walk him, he's a threat to steal. Somebody puts one to the outfield, he's gonna leg it to 3. He's a supreme athlete, and it's nice to see the moving pieces around him finally coming together. He's got some really unbelievable talent in Philly this year, and so if I'm picking now, I'm taking the Phillies over the Padres, and I'm hopeful the Astros take the Yankees. And I feel like that National League series, although I tend to be prone to watch the American League a little more because it's just clear and present. But I feel like I'm going to be drawn to that Phillies Padres because it's going to be like a heavyweight title fight with a couple of old fighters. They're going to fight each other the whole, just punch until one can't punch anymore. And then what you're going to see is the talent, whether it be Padres or Phillies, come through. I'm taking the Phillies, but I wouldn't be betting on that series. No way.
Greg?
Anything for you, Ken?
No, sorry, you were muted there for a second. No, I think I agree with Jason on this one. It's going to be an interesting series and what I like about this part too is that I'm just looking here just some of the scoring and how the rankings are, and everyone's kind of expecting LA and Atlanta, since they're the top 2 seeds, to move forward. I like to see when it's the underdogs or quote unquote underdogs doing it. So I mean, like you said, I think it's a toss up for Padres and the Phillies. I know Phillies seem to have a great run during the last couple of games against Atlanta. 9-1, 8-3. So they were really clicking their offense, and we'll see if they can, if the Padres can shut them down for, when they start the National League series.
Yeah, and that is the National League mentality right now. Everybody's been the underdog, and they've been running with it. And that I wonder how much in this new playoff format that bye actually hurts those higher seeded teams.
Well, they were saying that.
Yeah.
They heard that the Dodgers actually were struggling with that. I remember watching some, I don't know if it was Sportsnet or TSN, where they were mentioning that, Dodgers getting punished for this new playoff format. And sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. So when did they start? I always thought that the wild card was always like the best of 5 or best of 3. Sorry, best of 5, sorry. And then everything after that was best of 7. So was it just this season that they made it the first 2 rounds the best of 5?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So And yeah, this year is the old playoff format was that when you started with the American League Division Series, it was just one wild card team that got this far, and that started in 1995, right after that was the argument is that the Blue Jays won the last true division title that you could win. As far as in 1993 when they won the back-to-back year, that was the last year before the wild card. And then in 1994, there was a very good chance that there could have been an all-Canadian Baseball World Series. The Blue Jays were trending in the right direction in 94 after a horrible start. And finally, Sean Green and some of those guys that came and Delgado that were, surplants.
Alex Gonzalez, all those guys.
Finally started hitting the damn ball with Mulder and everybody. And it started picking up. But obviously the strike happened in 1994. Kind of killed baseball in Milwaukee, or I mean, not Milwaukee, in Montreal literally. Yeah. They never recovered and moved the team to Washington, D.C. here in the States. And then you saw the division thing. Okay, what do? We want more teams in the playoffs, and that's when the wild card was introduced. The next best record in baseball makes the playoffs. And then now, baseball's the only sport that a good chunk of the percentage of the teams, I think they were saying that 25% of the teams in baseball didn't even make the playoffs. So in every other sport, 25% of the teams make the postseason. And hockey's one of the ones that's 50%, 60% of the people it feels like I make it. Yeah. So there's all that ridiculous tournament that you get. But they were trying to find somewhere a balance between how football and hockey had more teams in the playoffs, and that's how we got to this year with the 3-game wild card instead of the sudden death wild card night, and continuing to move amongst that way. So, Ken, to your point, this was the first season that they had this new playoff format, so that those teams that were on the bye were no longer taking a 2 or 3 day bye to get away from the wild card game. They were taking a week off. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard time to come back and pick up the momentum. And outside of the Houston Astros, all the other teams did struggle with it. Even the Yankees were pushed to a 5-game series break.
Yeah, they were.
And then we saw 4-game series in both National League ballparks. So
exactly. Now, do you think it would have changed if it was back to the best of 7? Do you think the Dodgers could have pulled it back by this point, or do you think the way that San Diego was playing, they were just going to do it? Because it seemed like the games just seemed pretty close, actually. Games 3 and 4, they only lost by 1 run and a couple runs. So, I mean, it's almost like a toss-up for if they did go for the best of 7, if it would have changed.
Yeah. I mean, the Padres got lucky with Schnell, and then, they maybe would have been able to pitch Musgrove one more time, and the Dodgers still had 4 bullets in their gun. I mean, that's the reality of it. Is if you go to 7 in that series, the Dodgers are going to outpitch you. They have more arms, and so directly to your point, I mean, I think the Dodgers definitely come back and they definitely challenge in that. I mean, even the one that ended tonight, I think if this is a 7-gamer, I think the Guardians take this thing right to 7, and it's a knockdown, drag out, comes down to a dirty night in the rain in the Bronx, and just whoever can outlast the other, which I kind of like that baseball. The shiny stuff of hitting balls into the cheap seats that's fun and stuff. But to watch a guy squib one down third and then head first slide into 1, and then first pitch he's run into 2, and you're like, come on, oh wow, this is baseball. And so it's for me, I think that the Mariners would have been done no matter what, whether it was a 10-game series. I think they were outmatched.
Best of 10 still.
Yeah, best of 20. We're going. And so, and again, same with the Phillies. I feel like the Phillies were going to beat the Braves no matter how many games it was. The Braves looked tired. The Braves looked like the Dodgers. They looked like a team who's had, 2 really good years. And, if you watch the end of those games, nobody on the Dodgers bench was head in hand, I think they feel pretty good about the last 10 years. And it's the same with the Braves. Yeah. The Braves have been very good for a long time. And if you lose, you lost. So what?
To that point, the Dodgers still have a hell of a team going into next season too. So you take that with a grain of salt. Great. The guys they're losing are their veteran guys. The one that would probably hurt them the most is Trey Turner's actually a free agent.
Yeah. Now, to that point, and you brought this up earlier, and I think this is, and I don't want, if you want to, I think we should open this egg. I think we should crack this egg.
There it is.
So, I don't know if you guys read or not, but Shohei Ohtani is not happy with how bad the Anaheim Angels are, and they are bad. If you've got Trout and Ohtani, and you can't even come close to the playoffs, there's something wrong with you.
Correct. Their team was hurt and hindered this year because you talk about their other big ticket item is Anthony Rendon, the former World Series national MVP. So they had a good team, but they didn't have a amazing team. And when you're building around those two guys, and then you throw in Rendon, and then don't forget they had Syndergaard, and who just pitched a gem the other night for the Phillies,
and Marsh, who's now going to the finals.
Yep, exactly. To that point, it worked out pretty good for Syndergaard and Brandon Marsh being Philadelphia Phillies at the trade deadline. But it's very embarrassing to say that you're within the Anaheim Angels. And then the other factor of this whole thing is not only have they been bad, they are the owner is actively shopping the team.
Yeah, he has been for a while.
Correct. So the other part of that whole thing is somebody's going to want to come in, and they're going to either want to keep those two stars, Trout and Ohtani, or they're going to want to tear it completely down and start from scratch. And 9 times out of 10, most baseball people want to buy a team from scratch and start their own, their own fun on it instead of inheriting, especially that kind of money. It wouldn't shock me eventually that Trout is not going to be an Anaheim Angel for very long. He's too good of a ball player. I don't care how comfortable he is. Big difference between him and Ohtani is Ohtani only has, I think, a couple teams on his no trade clause.
One of them would really not be a popular choice to move down the road and put on Dodger blue. I don't even know.
That'd be rough. To that point.
Who are the two teams, sorry, that Ohtani says they're not allowed to trade to? The Dodgers, you said, looks like?
Yeah, Dodgers and
there was some other one. I can't remember the other one, honestly. But there's to that point, it was like basically in California, so it might have been the Giants.
Oh,
I think you might be right, actually.
Basically, they didn't want to have to trade him in market, so they, he would have to. They both would have to approve a trade within that thing. So to that point, if I'm Ohtani, I wouldn't want to go to the Giants. They're not going anywhere next year. They peaked last year.
Yeah. Now, gentlemen, do you think the Jays would even consider getting him?
If you have a chance to throw out a brick of prospects at somebody like Shohei Ohtani, even for a season, you do it. And I think the Blue Jays are feeling a little salty after missing out on some of these guys at the trade deadline. And just take a peek at what we have in the cupboard right now. We have 3 amazing catchers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are you going to do with that? That's trading. We have 3 catchers that are major league.
We have to trade one of them, and it's like
Sophie's
choice, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're able to get somebody like, Ohtani in that deal, you probably throw in a Teoscar or a Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who would probably be the sweeter one of those two because he's got more team control than Teoscar does. But then you sprinkle in a bunch of prospects and things happen. And I think that there's enough prospects at the top end going into next season that people would be intrigued about. And what say you if Nate Pearson's part of that trade right now? I'm saying go right ahead, have fun. As much as I love watching Nate Pearson, there's not enough reality to me. But there's still plenty of trade value there. So if you have a chance to get somebody in the flip of that, like Ohtani, that can hit and pitch, fine. Just throw the brick of prospects at it.
Yeah, but will he be enough though?
And I'm not a big sell the farm to get what is Ohtani, 27, 28?
Something like that. I had to look. But to that point, he's also only got 1 year on his contract, Jason.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
You waste a bunch of bullets, and he decides he's going to go to the Dodgers anyways. But
you could do an a la Roy Halladay trade here. I don't know if you all remember that trade when we made the Anthopoulos dealt him to the Philadelphia Phillies. That deal was completely contingent on the Phillies being able to actually re-sign him at the time of the trade.
Yeah.
So they negotiated a contract extension at that time for X prospects going back to the Blue Jays. So that worked out for everybody. Unfortunately, none of those prospects really played out for the Toronto Blue Jays, unless you get like 6 degrees from Anthony Ghost to Devin Travis and so on.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that they could be structuring for,
Yeah.
We will do this, but you're going to give us 30 days to talk to Ohtani to guarantee this extension and just pay him out the freaking crazy for 5 years or something like that and call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, he's a generational player. And I agree with you. If you get the opportunity and you're not stripping the whole thing, taking the whole cupboard, because I mean, they've been so bad. The Angels have been so bad for so long. You'd hate to see a bunch of more good talent just get thrown down there, and just it's something systematic has to change down there. And you've got to hope that at some point Mike Trout finally says, "Guys, I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm not going to keep walking out to center field and losing and cashing my check. I want to win a World Series. I want to know what the playoffs are like. I just so many things as a professional baseball player at the level he's at that he hasn't experienced by not being in the playoffs. It's crazy." And
correct
for me,
interesting.
It's one of those things where if I was him, this would be about the time where I would be like, "Guys, I'm either out of here because or you're going even more than it was. But is that worth it? I don't think that it is. Like, I mean, the other teams.
Here's the worth. If you want the actual worth. So currently he is in his 5th year of his 12-year deal. So he is not an unrestricted free agent until 2031. Does anybody want to wager dollars to pesos to whatever the hell you want to call it? Money, how much he's making in a year?
Well, he signed for $360 million for 10 years or 9 years, didn't he?
I just had it.
He's making like $47 million a year.
It was a 12-year, $426.5 million job. Is the biggest contract outside of re-aggregating Barry Bonds' contract from when he signed with the to inflation rules of baseball.
Yeah.
And he, like I said, he is not an unrestricted free agent until his age 39 season. Wow. He is currently 31, and he's making a mere 35 point
$35.5
$35 million a year.
35 crazy.
So
what's the
point? If
what's the A's whole payroll?
That and Ohtani. Because Ohtani's is probably about, is pretty damn crazy for somebody that literally signed right out of Japan with no Major League Baseball experience. There was a lot of guarantees of playing time and such things like that, which to his power, great that he did that. But Mike Trout, if the Angels are willing to eat any of that contract to get prospects in return, which is probably where that really goes, I'm throwing money at that too, because the one nice thing about it, he's performed crazily in Toronto. And the other piece of that whole fun thing is that he doesn't have to play center field in Toronto. So he might stay healthy.
DH probably wants, man.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yep.
Or to that point, he gets to play left or right field. Mm-hmm. You got somebody like Mike Trout playing left or right field in Toronto. Dear God, man. And that's paired with whatever we don't give away in our outfield at the same time. So let's say you do have to trade Loris in that situation. Okay, great. Your outfield is now Trout, Springer, and Teoscar. I'm okay with
not bad.
I don't think we're not going to complain if that happens, right? So.
Or in the aggregate, Ohtani in that spot.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
You're winning now. Throw money.
It's fun to dream.
Well, that's always the concern I always have when a lot of people like to stack their teams, right? NBA does it all the time, right? They stack it with all these players, and it could just be just for that one season that just to win the championship, and then trade them all away or whatever. Just. Mm-hmm. I hope that's not what the case is I hope that's what Toronto's doing. I think we're actually investing in the right pieces, right? We're actually playing for the long term. We're not actually going to be just trying to say, well, World Series great, but we're not going to front load and just get all these all-stars now just for the sake of getting that one championship and then they all leave, or worst case, they don't perform the following year.
Yeah. And I was trying to see if I could figure out or find it really quick what their payroll is going to be for next season, but of course it's going to take forever for it to load on my phone.
Payroll table of 2023 for the Jays.
There's a website called sporttrack.com who does
that's
a
what
really
I was
good
on right now. Actually,
does a really good job of tracking, what players are up for arbitration with a ballpark. How much they think they're going to make and all that stuff. I don't know who the hell actually does the back end of that whole thing, but somebody's doing some pretty good jobs. It's been pretty on point for many years in a row.
It stopped working for me all of a sudden. Now I sounded smart looking at this stuff, and now page is not working. So don't ask me anything about dollars and free agents and all that sort of stuff.
Maybe I should just look at our lovely friends at our podcast hosting website of jaysjournal.com on fansite.com, because our friend Charles Keim wrote about the looming payroll to squeeze coming this season, and they're ballparking that their roster to end this season was $230 million. I believe that's within striking distance of the luxury tax for Toronto or for baseball, period. Sorry, I take that back. They were at 204, 230 is the luxury tax. So you add Mike Trout, they're over the luxury tax.
They're over. How much money do we have to work with for this coming season there, Craig, since it's working for you? It's not working for me anymore. So
like I said, I found it on our affiliates because somebody just happened to write about it today or in the last 6 days. So to that point, Ken, they said that our total cost for all of our stuff last year was $204.4 million to end the 2022 season. So there's going to be certain amounts of raises, arbitration, whatnot that's mixed into that whole thing. You are going to lose some people in the midst of that equation too. Right now, their pending contract eligible arbitration pieces are Teoscar, Tapia, Adam Simber, Trevor Richards, Bradley Zimmer, Danny Jansen, Vlad Jr., Tim Meza, Kevin Biggio, Trent Thornton, Bo Bichette, Romano, and Espinal. There's not many in that list that are not getting raises.
Everyone's getting
the argument that Vladdy made his giant monster of a raise the season before, so he's going to get something good, but not MVP level. Teoscar had another good season. He's hurt, but to that point, it's still progressing. I think this is his last year of arbitration. Espinal's not going to make $2 million after the year he had. He was an all-star, so there's something to argument there.
Yep.
And then this isn't even getting into the ballpark of the fact that Ross Stripling is a free agent, and he was pretty damn good.
We got to keep him, man. We got to sign that guy, man. Or keep him for that. He performed really well this last half of the season, so got to definitely keep him. I know Phelps, I believe, is also up this year, and he's playing in the minors right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But to that point, the random stuff, according to where this article went from jaysjournal.com, was the fact that there wouldn't be a shocking value if they kept Stripling at the $14 to $15 million ballpark, which is probably what he's worth for one season with his wins above replacement level and everything. It would not shock him that this would be a $62 million pay increase. But there is some things coming off the record too, so they are ballparking that it'd be just under the luxury tax of about $229 million with the arbitration stuff.
I think it's nice too that there's a bunch of guys in there that are signed as well. Like there's some guys that have some journey in there. So Chapman has possibly the best defensive year a third baseman's ever had for the Jays. Sorry, Kelly Gruber. But, it's the reality of it. I mean, it was unbelievable. And he's locked in for 3 more years or something like that.
I want to say it's this season, actually, period.
Just this season.
We only got him for 2. So he's
up till 24. He's up to 24. He's free agent 24.
Espinal, he's going to get a big raise. Jano and Kirk probably get raises. Kirk
is not technically arbitration eligible yet. He's still a rookie. So that's the weird one that to that point, I would imagine he gets some incentive. It just won't be on the books.
Get him some steak knives or something. I don't know.
Yeah. For that maple beef.
The maple beef. He's got. I'm really optimistic for him for this coming season. I hope he can keep that momentum going as well. But so let me ask you guys. I know we kind of talked about 3 catchers Who would you guys think we would have to give up? I mean, unless you can think we can play him and just keep one of them as like a DH, but then like kind of like Teoscar's kind of like the
if I'm building a ball club right now, the most appealing out of those three, obviously, it would be Gabriel Moreno, but I don't think the Blue Jays trade Moreno. I think that the chip right now to trade is actually Danny Jansen, and that's because he came back healthy at the end of the season, proved he can finally hit at the major league level, and everybody's already been enamored with his catching prowess behind the plate. So I think he is if you're starting a team and you needed a solid backstop, he spells it for you, especially with young pitchers.
Could not agree more. I feel like if Kirk gets his games next year, you're even going to see his game go to a higher level. The more he plays, the better he is. He needs it. He needs to be playing almost every single day. He's a machine. And then what's the young guy's name again? I don't know why it is.
Moreno.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And the thing with him is he can play anywhere. He doesn't just have to catch. He can play third. He can play short. He can play the outfield.
He actually played left field a few times for the Buffalo Bisons at the end of the year.
He's a very, very, very good athlete, and he hits the ball a ton. And so he's not going anywhere unless it's something really ridiculous, unless there's something out there.
Trout.
Well, yeah, Ohtani.
So this conversation started, Jason.
But yeah, I mean, it's, I think you're dead on with that. And I love Jano. I think he's done an amazing job as a J and really worked that catcher's position to be a premier catcher's position for both, catchers. And it's so important. It gets overlooked so much. I mean, the catcher for the Guardians couldn't throw me out if I was trying to steal second base. And it's a big deal. Like if you've got Aaron Judge sauntering down to second base, he's not even running and you still can't get him. I think that's a big deal. And I think he was 1 for 26. Like, great. Okay. You can catch the ball, but there's lots of guys that can do that. Like there's other parts of it.
But in that aggregate, let's say it came down to them. We have the money to sign Aaron Judge. We have the trade prospects to go after fully and get Ohtani or Trout or the equivalent person throughout the major leagues. Would you rather spend the money on Trout or on the prospects and whatnot on Trout or Ohtani, or would you rather just throw a giant heaping pile of money at Aaron Judge? And me personally, I can't see what the hell I would be paying with Aaron Judge. I'm worried that this is the iceberg that he was ever going to get. Period.
Yeah,
and I'm worried.
I would definitely not go for Judge. Like you said, you're really relying on him to have. And could he hit another 62 home runs? Great, but all it takes is just one injury.
Which he's done.
Goes all of our money. Yeah, which he's done. I mean, look at Ryu for the Jays, right? Like we spent so much money on him, and that's why when we talk about overachievers and underachievers, he's kind of a little bit of a disappointment. I know he got hurt, so. But even those 2 wins he did get of those starts that he had, I mean, he still had an ERA of like almost 6. So
it wasn't the Ryu of 2019 when he was, helping us get in the playoffs. Or not 2019, 2020.
2020.
Yeah, I think that if you're looking at
a mere $20 million a year, by the way.
Yes, that's true. I think if you're looking at that, I mean, I'm not going after Judge either. I mean, I've seen the changes he's made to his swing. I still can't understand why anybody throws him a fastball inside. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
it's the same thing with the Vlad.
I know how to why throw it there. I understand you're going to make mistakes when you're trying to throw the ball hard or you're trying to put it in a spot, but he's waiting for it. I mean, for a guy who has just in this series struck out 12 times, he's more than willing to swing at bad pitches. Whereas, if you get a guy like Ohtani and you get him in in a good part of a lineup where he's got trouble on both sides of him and they're worried they have to kind of pitch to him, then I mean, could Ohtani hit 60 or 65? For sure he could. And maybe he's only got a couple more years on the mound, but who cares? I mean, if he can go out and bash 48 and maybe jump in and give you a couple of innings when you need it, then I mean, he's a totally different. He's a unbelievable beast. That guy.
Yeah, my worry with Aaron Judge is that he is going to be the Yankees equivalent of Vernon Wells for the Blue Jays fans. And to that point, I loved watching Vernon Wells play baseball. But was he worth every penny that he got out of that contract? He had the best season he humanly possibly could right when he was going to be a free agent for the Blue Jays. And that lineup in 2003 with him and Delgado just dropping taters into the Rogers Center seats, that was a fun year.
But I think we've all seen how often it happens in baseball, and I don't know if we see it as much as we do, as prevalently as we do in hockey. When guys are up for their contract year in hockey, these guys play out of their minds. Like a guy like Louis Eriksson scores 30.
They find it on their gear, right?
And so, and I think that professional sports teams are starting to gauge those things. They're not having hey, it's okay. That was good. Okay, awesome. So we're going to give you this. And the player says, well, I deserve this. And they're like, well, you're not going to get that unless it's from a dum-dum. So if there is a stupid team out there or somebody who's willing to burn money, then that's where those guys end up.
And I think we've been seeing that the last few years, even in baseball.
Yeah.
The contracts haven't been as ridiculous as they were. You haven't, you're seeing the Julio Rodriguez get rewarded with a giant extension. The Willie Harris's for the Ronald Acuña's. And I would say that most of those deals are going to pan out unless you're looking at Fernando Tatis, what you mentioned a few minutes ago. That would be, I think, the outlier. But Juan Soto is going to get paid just like that. Mm-hmm. You assume as Blue Jays fans that Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. are going to get paid in some fashion in the next few years, similar to that, if not this offseason, which many will make the argument for. But knowing this team is whatever that catalyst piece that we hit the hammer on or hit the nail really hard last week with, they're going to have to throw that money at that catalyst. And these few guys that we're talking about, guys, and Trout and Ohtani, they're hungry and want that playoff piece. I know they haven't gotten it, but there was a difference that could be the light to this, kick this fire up into high gear.
Yeah. No, I mean, totally agree on that.
It's one of those things too, that the Jays have a really, really, really good base to work from. You can even take good pieces away from that base. They're going to need some middle relief coming up for next year. And then, one of my buddies said we're they're miles away from landing somebody like this. Well, they're not. They're not that far off, and they're in every conversation. So I went and looked in between. The teams that he's talking about are the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Braves. Ohtani. So how can you not put the Jays right there with those teams? Like, they're all very similar teams. They have very similar records. They have very similar talent, makeup, all of that stuff. And Ohtani has expressed in the past that he likes playing in Canada. He enjoys going to Toronto. He enjoys the city. He likes it. It's
well, you guys have been in the city. It is the I can't say any other ways other than it's one of the biggest melting pots of all cultures I've ever been in my whole life, which is one of the many reasons I love going to the city of Toronto. For somebody like him that is Japanese and ready to be, the Asian population in general is going to latch on to Shohei Ohtani in any way, shape, or form that you can think of. Just think of how cool it was for when Ryu came over. We inherited a whole other country of fans. It's this great thing. It's
exactly.
And to that point, we have a lot of friends that love Korean baseball too in the podcast world here. And we were hearing nothing but raving about Ryu when he came over. So it was great to hear that. And that same thing, this could be the Blue Jays getting like Ichiro Suzuki level of what Mariners fans got to enjoy for years. So Ken, you had something on your mind. I clearly could see it.
No. I mean, I'm just trying to picture it right now, and like, wow. Because the thing too, it's not, no one's going to shoulder everything on Ohtani if he does come to Toronto, because we have Manoah, we have Barrios, so it's not like he's going to be and Stripling. We're not like we're going to be. Everyone's going to be just waiting for him to perform. Like, we have a good a rotation that we can have with them. So it'd be very interesting to see. And sorry, let me just ask you guys this one, because like I said, I'm trying to follow up with everything like you guys are. So LA, so the Angels are playing in the National League, is that right?
Oh, no, they're American League.
American League? Okay,
American
so
League,
we can,
West Division.
So we can, okay. So is it still the old thing in the National League that the pitchers can bat, and in the American League we cannot?
This year was the first year of the universal DH. So that was the rest of the changes that we were talking about that happened before this season, Ken.
So they did also allow Ohtani to pitch and hit in the same game, which again, they haven't done that. Like it was a weird sort of thing.
It is the Ohtani rule. It's literally written in the
that's what I heard. So
rule book as the Ohtani rule, because after he leaves the game pitching, he can remain as the DH.
Yes.
So interesting.
It's a great idea. I mean, I love the fact that there's a sport as old as baseball that's willing to progress when they need to. They see a generational player making a difference, unbelievably popular, just smashing the ball, throwing 100-mile-an-hour strikes. Well, what do we do to keep him on the field more? Because that's what we want. We want him on the field as much as possible. Oh, we just changed this rule and no one seems to care. Oh, okay, great. Let's do that. So, I mean, it's really nice to see it because there's a lot of other leagues that do not make those changes. They wait too long, and then that generational star, like Connor McDavid, is wasting away in Edmonton, and there's a lot of rules that could be updated to allow Connor to be a little bit more free, to be, to have the play move a little bit faster, whatever the case may be. But take advantage of a guy who's that good,
Well, to that point, just to say it, Sidney Crosby's been getting away with enough over the years. I'm glad somebody else isn't just running with that idea. So
it just makes me think of that Jose Canseco game where he actually pitched for the first time. What was that? How did that happen?
He ripped his whole shoulder out.
He ripped his shoulder, his elbow. He was gone after that.
They were getting so badly beaten that they just threw him into the ball game because he's like, just go out there and throw. And he went out there trying to throw too hard, and apparently he was having some elbow issues right at then and there after that. But
that's a rule that they're not. That's the rule that they're not bringing back, right? They're not bringing that anybody can pitch.
Oh, anybody's allowed to pitch.
29
position players do it this year.
Yeah, I think there's 29 position players pitched this year. Something like that.
I forget who pitched for us. Was it Espinal that pitched the one inning?
Yeah. No, I think he pitched twice, didn't he?
Maybe it was. I can't remember. There's the only two games we really got beaten up, and they were both with Montoyo, and he threw him out.
Ryan Goins pitch like 4 times one year or 5? Like
Goins pitched once. Jeff Fry did it back in the day.
Yeah.
And there's your Blue Jays trivia night, because Jeff Fry is an answer to a Toronto Blue Jays trivia question that nobody ever remembers. He's one of the only Blue Jays to ever hit the cycle.
Oh.
So there's your trivia answer for the night.
When did this happen?
God, he was only on the team for like 1 year, and I want to say it was like maybe 04-ish.
Really?
Something like that. I'd have to look it up, honestly. Even my Blue Jay prowess has come into play on that one. I just know he's one of the few Blue Jays that hit the cycle. The others are Kevin Biggio and Kelly Gruber.
Gruber.
So, actual Blue Jays.
Actual. Lovely.
So, but to that point, it does happen, and that's why they needed to modify this rule or some of these things to allow when Ohtani's pitching, that, okay, great, we took you out of the game, go collect, grab some bench. They didn't want that to happen, so they altered the DH rule to accept a pitcher. If the starting pitcher is the DH to start the game, he's allowed to exit the pitching and remain as a DH, but it's only starting pitching. You can't have a bullpen arm hitting and then come in and pitch 1 inning. Go back out. No. So it's just to start the game. Yes.
Yeah.
So
maybe when he moves
to that point, that would
the pen.
Yeah. When he moves to the pen, they're gonna have to re-alter that rule. Because they're gonna want him coming out closing games and throwing 100 miles an hour again. So I have a strange feeling his work ethic isn't going to let him ever come out of the bullpen, though. He's either going to stop pitching or he's just going to, whatever it might be. So, but to that point, that would be a very intimidating Toronto lineup, and having him and all those extra, fans in the ballpark is going to make it that much more appealing for him, I think, too. And he got a taste of what Toronto's like this year when he came late in the season with the Angels.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he'd be opposing that whole idea at all. I think that if the Blue Jays throw a brick of prospects to the Angels, he's going to be excited about it.
Yeah. And sorry, you said that the owners kind of maybe shopping the team around. Do you guys know where the rumors are where he might try to move the LA Angels to?
Not moving the team, selling the team.
Yeah. So selling the team?
Yeah, he's tried a number of different times. I think I was reading, I think that he's tried 4 times over the last 10 years or something like that to, really aggressively sell the team.
Which is hilarious because he bought it from Disney.
Yeah.
You actually bought something from Disney. Disney doesn't sell anything.
No. So, I mean, I feel like, if somebody does buy that team, it's going to be, either a really prominent Anaheim baseball, businessman, or, you could see maybe Honda. Like Honda has giant presence in Anaheim. Maybe they step up and say, you know what, we're going to buy it to get the stadium. We'd have the 2 stadiums in the city, in Anaheim. Yep. We'd rule the Ducks and we'd have the Angels.
Oh, that's right. They do own the Ducks. I forgot about that.
And it's, so maybe that's where you start to see that. Or, I mean, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of ex-baseball players that are around and looking for these opportunities, and a lot of them made pretty good money. And you might start to see.
Derek Jeter never really got a chance to do what he wanted with his investment group in Miami.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to see more of these investment groups with guys who are just getting out of the game, getting together and trying to play fantasy baseball with the money that they've made. So, I mean, who knows?
As long as John Bon Jovi doesn't try to buy my Buffalo Bills again, I'm happy.
What was that terrible Arena League football team? The Philadelphia Liberty or so? No, it was a really bad name, and they were a bad team. Yeah, you bought not an XFL team, but it was something of that
something
ilk.
Close to it. Yeah, to that point, now we can buy an XFL team as long as it's not in Buffalo. I don't need that shit.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm calling you right here, gentlemen. I have a feeling Elon Musk will buy the Los Angeles Angels, and he'll take him to SpaceX. So I'll play from another universe.
After he settles his debt with Twitter.
Twitter, him, or he'll partner up with Bezos or Zuckerberg and actually have the Angels play in Meta. So that's what it'll be. All VR helmets. Can you imagine that next?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. CC Sabathia's kid's already doing it on that Win VR crap. Why don't you've seen those commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the how to train with basically it's sitting in your living room, having a pitching machine in VR with a real bat and everything.
Yeah.
CC Sabathia, the whole ad campaign is pitchers hate it. So CC Sabathia is going, I hate this. Drops the controller down, walks away, and his son picks it up and he goes, hitters love it.
No.
It's actually really funny.
My very good friend Trevor Nuttall, who just lives down the way from me, he has it. And my kids absolutely love it. They've been down there to their place a number of times. They have asked for it. And I've looked into it, and it is actually a very good training tool. I mean, like we use Inside Performance batting cages here in North End. Shout out. And, to have they have hit tracks in there. And so you can go hit in any baseball park you want. And that's a lot of fun because you're actually, you're standing there and hitting the ball and
it looks like the Sky Dome or whatever you end up wanting. That hit tracks thing is really cool. The Win VR thing is taking that now into your home and being able to do that and still get the same thing out.
Sorry, because I might want to get that for my son.
Win VR.
Win VR.
Yeah.
So you have to get the headset and I've looked at a few of them. Best Buy has some good choices for it, and I think Win actually has one that they will sell.
Yeah, they package it. I think it's really an Oculus Rift thing that you would get for the Metaverse thing from Facebook.
And then the bat has you can use it as controllers, so you can hold it in your hand if you don't want to use a bat. There's other training you can do with it. You can actually, rather than hitting training, you can do fielding training with it, which is
to that point, it's basically the equivalent of taking a Wii remote and duct taping it to your baseball bat.
Yeah, so it has fittings for the bats, and they also come. Win actually sells a hockey one as well for goalies and for players.
I did see
and so
that.
What you do is the same thing. You attach it to the stick, and you can stick handle, and it represent you're on the ice, or on your arm. It's really neat stuff. Like, I mean,
it's great technology moving forward.
I've heard that you can't do it for very long. It's 10, 15 minute spurts, and then you gotta take it off and let your brain catch back up.
Oh, it's like that. Yeah, well, which doesn't surprise me. It's too much of a one thing, right?
But for everything else that I've heard, that it's a really incredible way to train. I know the golf one's coming out for it next year, I think it said on the website, but it's interesting to see now that
Make sure I
level.
play that in this little room that I got here, where I'm just taking out all my Funko Pops and my Transformers and my TV, and and then, or go in the back room where I can just destroy all my Blue Jays and Bills and Sabres stuff.
Yeah, there you go. So I mean, I think that what the technology on some of this stuff is certainly showing us is that, I mean, you could even be sitting in the dugout, and rather than, sort of back in the day when guys would get accused of going down and like going into the batting cages that are underneath and, to keep warm and that kind of stuff. And, there's no cameras down there. Well, of course there's not. Of course they're going down there. But you could even just pop on the VR in the dugout now, and you're just taking swings right there without a bat in your hand. Yeah. Right. I mean, weighted gloves, whatever, and
talking on death circle, you could be virtually going on the guy that you're about to face.
Yeah, and I mean, they're on the iPads the second something happens. Like if you,
I see why pitchers hate it.
Yeah,
I see a lot of people with the iPads during the games now. I'm like, wow.
Especially Lourdes Gurriel Jr. going, yeah. Unless they don't pull a Tom Brady and break all the tablets, I think it'll be all right. So, but anyway, fellas, I don't want to keep you much longer because we are approaching the hour mark here. Is there anything you would like to throw in here in the last 5 minutes, or if we're done, we're done?
I think
we've Ohtani this to death.
Yeah, we really have Ohtani this to death. That could be our new
Me Ohtani.
That could be our new rule. That after a certain number of minutes spoken about Ohtani, that's the new Ohtani rule. We have to stop. Like a sound effect goes off, and gong or something. And
I'm going to start playing music like we're in a word show.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me, I invested a lot of time watching the Jays this year, more than I probably have in the last, I would say 6-7 years. And I think I really do feel like the good outweighs the bad this year. I felt like they needed to get to the playoffs. I felt like they needed to feel what it was like. I really do feel like they are going to make a solid effort to try and improve the team. And, I think in my old age, I have realized now that I just can't get mad at this stuff anymore. I can't. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Right? That's 2 weeks in a row. I got you.
So, I mean, I think the big thing is just start to look at the positives. And, the people that are out and, listening to us, just start looking at the positives. And sure, Vladdy was okay and Bo was questionable, but they're gonna come around. They're young. They're and they love the game. Like Bo Bichette wants to win so badly, it's not even funny. I mean, the guy doesn't
bleed
even
it out
smile
on the field.
But I think that this young core is really going to start to drive the bus, and I think that next year is going to be a really exciting year. I'm hoping they can avoid the big pitfalls and maybe have a year similar to what the Dodgers looked at this year, like a few wins off, but I think it's in there. And if they can just get that feeling and put lightning in a bottle and just ride it all year long, I think we could be looking at the Jays being favorites next year come this time of the year to win the World Series.
Yeah, to that point, they weren't too far off from that this year. It's just the couple of different balls land in different places. We might have a very different conversation even the last 2 weeks, boys.
So if Ray was actually not injured, who's to know what kind of season we would have had as well.
Right? And to that point, we're going to be talking over the next few weeks. I'm glad we were able to fill in this week with a couple of things in last week, guys. But I like when the NLCS stuff starts. We start talking year in review. So next week we'll tackle probably the hitting and the position player part, and then we'll do the pitching the following. And I want to figure out one of those weeks where we actually talk John Schneider and his managing tenure after we've had a little.
Will he be back?
Correct. I want to let some of the chips fall into that whole thing before we start talking off season after the World Series, because that's when all the free agency mayhem will start. So we're a good end of October part away here into November to be able to get to talk free agent baseball and all the, the show high entertainment that we'll be talking about. So, but boys, everything's good. Everything's wonderful. We're moving on, and we're going to be planning for next year on the show. And then we'll find some fun things over the off season here as trivia nights and goof around things with our buddies over at jaysjournal.com, who we've already plugged once this evening. We are the official Blue Jays podcast of jaysjournal.com and fan-sided. I think I have the logo somewhere right now on here.
That's correct there somewhere. Yep.
So make sure you listen to us wherever you get your podcasting pleasures for. I don't know what the hell happened to the live feed tonight, but this video will be going live right when I can post it right after the show. I'm going to blame new technology and fun and not letting me stream anymore. So I'm going to be having a nice talk with Riverside FM after this show.
There you go.
But to that point, there's their plug too, if it's shame or not, whatever way. So Blue Jays fans, make sure you listen in, come in and join us on these shows. We might do a couple of Twitter Spaces shows again, just to get people going. That end up really well before the playoffs. And we want to talk to the fans. We're also going to be doing some fan invites to the show where we're going to interview you on your Blue Jays fandom. So Blue Jays fans, until next week, you guys ready for the 2 claps and a Ric Flair?
You got it.
1, 2, 3. Woo! Let's go, Blue Jays.
Let's go, Blue Jays.